Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Kayla Bilodeau, and I am an outreach peer support worker for the Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba. And today I'm going to just talk about a mental health topic that is quite close to me and that I am quite passionate about, and that being anxiety. So I'm going to just have a little bit of a discussion about, what anxiety is, um, how it is normal. We all have anxiety. And then I want to just talk a little bit about what generalized anxiety disorder is. It's a really popular one that many people are diagnosed with. And then I'm going to just talk about, what kinds of things that we can do, what kind of programming is out there, so that, so that we can start taking control over our lives again. And so, anxiety can kind of take a hike and maybe sit in the passenger seat while we kind of reclaim the driver's seat. Okay. So we're going to kind of just jump into it. Okay. So I'm sure that we've all heard of anxiety before, and we probably all have experienced it before as well. So what anxiety is it is our nervous system's flight, fight, and freeze response. Okay. So what this is that when we are in some sort of stressful, adverse situation, our nervous system says, hey, danger. And this can be a real threat or a perceived threat, okay? And then so our minds are like, okay, perceived threat, danger, okay, flight, fight, and freeze response activated into the body. And so what happens is that, we have adrenaline and cortisol, that gets put throughout our bodies once that flight, fight, and freeze response is activated. Okay, and so that is what anxiety is. Okay, and then we also have the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which is actually known as the relaxation part of the nervous system. So we have two parts of the nervous system, okay? And I just kind of want to make sure that we understand this. So we have your flight, fight, and freeze response, okay? And so that gets activated. And then, so it gets activated, and if you want to kind of think of a circle here, so it gets activated, it sends, signal into our bodies. Okay, we have a perceived danger here. And then what ends up happening is because our bodies like to be in a state of homeostasis at all times. And once there's that realization that there is no real perceived threat, our bodies automatically, okay, will bring ourselves back into a homeostasis place because our bodies like to feel that level, okay? And a lot of people don't know that there is another part to our nervous system that does bring about that calmness. So that is, if you've ever experienced a panic attack or you've had anxiety but it's gone away, that's because your body is doing its work, okay? So that is the parasympathetic part of the nervous system that has then been activated and that has now brought about calmness to your body. And so a lot of people, when they're having a panic attack, they think, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack and I can't breathe and I can't make it through. The best thing that individual can do is to say, you know what, this is anxiety. I'm going to make it through and just breathe anyway, and just get through it, because you know what, like, you're going to be okay. You're not going to, you can't die from anxiety. You can't have a heart attack from anxiety. And so it's just really important to note that, you know what, your body will do its work and bring your body back into a place of homeostasis. Okay, so I really wanted, you all to be aware of that, because a lot of people actually aren't aware of that, and especially if you are struggling with an anxiety disorder, that can feel very debilitating, and it can be really hard for other people to even understand that as well. Okay, so moving on. So that is what anxiety is. Now, we all have anxiety. Even the sea slug has anxiety. So anxiety becomes a problem, and maybe even an anxiety disorder for somebody, when it's disproportionate to the situation, maybe at hand, how frequently this person is experiencing anxiety. Is this person experiencing anxiety on a daily basis? Is this person experiencing it, at least 3 times a week? Or is it more just like, here and there every single time, maybe a little stressful situation comes up? And so that would be more like normal anxiety. And so when somebody is experiencing anxiety most of the time or all the time, this would be classified as, going alongside that, maybe that anxiety disorder. So we have disproportionate into in relation to the situation at hand, and then we have how frequent is, this person experiencing anxiety, and then our last piece is, is this person's anxiety debilitating their ability to get through their day the way that they would like to get through their day. So is it causing impairment for this individual to be able to do the things that they would like to do in their lives? And so that is what we look at, when we look at anxiety disorders, okay? And staff at Adam, we are not doctors. We cannot prescribe medications or offer any sort of medical or medication advice. So you want to talk to your GP about that, or your nurse practitioner, and they'll be able to give you all the answers for that. Okay. So with anxiety disorders, some of the really, really common ones are social anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder, specific phobias. There's even separation anxiety. Yeah, there's quite a few more, but those are just the ones that are coming to the top of my head. So today I want to talk more specifically about generalized anxiety disorder. So what generalized anxiety disorder is, that's when the person is excessively worrying, okay? And usually there is also a relation to that person not being very tolerant to uncertainty, okay? So that's what that kind of looks like. And what those worries look like are that person's worrying about everyday things. So, what if, I get into my car and, what if I'm hit, when I'm driving to work? What if I lose my job? What if I can't pay the mortgage? What if my family member, gets cancer and dies? Like just there's just generalized anxieties over everyday things that are excessive. So that's what that person is worrying about. And usually it's about things that haven't happened yet. So those are hypothetical worries, okay? And that person, and just to kind of normalize this a little bit too, is that, we all worry, and worrying serves a purpose when we can problem solve and take action on those worries. So an example of that would be is, okay, let's say I did lose my job. Well, then, you know what, I am going to worry about it because that's going to help me plan and take action, okay? But to a certain extent, right? So I'm worried that, hey, I lost my job, but okay, so now what am I going to do about it? Okay. So once I've taken those steps, to try and find a new job, there really isn't much else that I can do, while waiting for that phone call, or, waiting for the interview. Of course, I'm going to have a little, anxiety over the anticipation of waiting for these things, but it really wouldn't serve me a purpose to continue worrying about this. So somebody who does struggle with generalized anxiety disorder will still continue to worry about things over, above, and beyond, okay? And they may even go further into the what if this, what if that, like, so it could very much start off as, I lost my job, what if I can't pay the mortgage? What if I can't pay this? What if this? There's all these what ifs, okay? And where they actually hold a very valid place in worrying when they're consuming our day all the time, every day, it becomes debilitating. So we really want to worry smart. So some things that we can do around our worries, okay, are we can schedule a worry time. And what that looks like is we're think of like a fish tank, okay? So we're going to just schedule a worry time, and that's the fish tank. And what we're doing is we're going to confine our worry into one space so that it can't grow. Okay? So if you want to think about it like this, is that when someone's worrying all throughout their day, it becomes very exhausting. They become very tired. They don't get and they don't maybe they don't get what they want to get done in the day. Maybe they don't do the job that they were trying to do in the best way that they want to do it. These people have a really hard time being present in their day. And because they're so worried about everything all the time that they're in this hyper tense state of, what's next, that they have that inability to just be like, really valuing the process over, opposed like they're just kind of waiting for the next thing to get done sort of thing. Okay? So that's just kind of an example of like a worry time. So when we are confining it to one space, it can't grow. So for example, let's say I'm worried about something, but you know what? I say, you know what? I schedule myself a worry time tonight at 5 p.m. Maybe not 5 p.m. That's not a good time. That's like supper time. 6 p.m. Let's choose 6 p.m. So I schedule a worry time for 6 p.m. Okay. So anytime a worry comes up, I'm gonna be like, no, I'm gonna worry about this in my worry time. Okay. Now another way of actually doing this is, you know what? Because I've heard this quite a few times before with other people that I've worked with is, what if I forget about my worries? Well, if you forget about your worries, you can write them down. If you're worried that you're going to forget about them, write them down. And you know what? Even better yet, if you write them down and you look at them and you can take action on one of those worries and problem solve around one of those worries right then and there, do it. I would never say like worrying is a bad thing. It helps us prepare, I've already mentioned. So that's where that can be really helpful, and it can really just allow that space, for people who do tend to over worry. Okay. Also asking yourself questions like, if this did happen, how could I cope? Right? Or, what are two other possible outcomes that could happen from this worry that I'm having right now? Is there maybe a better way that I could worry about this right now? Is there maybe a different way I could think about this right now? Do I really have control over this situation or this worry? Why am I worrying about this? Even asking yourself, those even in more depth questions can even sometimes be helpful, because we have to remember we're worrying about something because there's a fear behind the worry. So what's the fear? You can ask yourself, well, what am I fearing that's going to happen? You know? So and an example to highlight that would be like if you're worrying about, not paying your mortgage, well, what the fear behind that is you're worried that you're not going to have a home to live in. So that's the fear, right? So asking ourselves sometimes those more in-depth questions can really be helpful to figure out what we are worrying about. Okay? And so another huge piece with generalized anxiety disorder is that, and something that actually sustains worry, is being intolerant to uncertainty in life. So, and this is honestly, this is a fact of life. There is pain and suffering in life. And people who have a really hard time accepting this truth really do tend to worry more because they want to try and control the outcome. But the truth is, can we really control the outcomes of something happening? Because even if, even if, like, let's say I exercise every single day, I eat healthy, I'm just a really, really healthy individual, and yet I still get diagnosed with cancer or with some sort of debilitating disease or something like that. That can happen to me. I could read every single parenting book in the world and try and be this perfect parent, and yet, maybe I have twins, and, maybe little Sue, grows up to be, just like I wanted after I read all the books. And maybe her twin, her other twin sister grows up the complete opposite, but I did nothing different with them. I really can't control that outcome. I can't control whether or not, let's say my husband was a truck driver and, I'm consistently worrying about him on the road. I'm texting him. I'm calling him to make sure he's safe. I'm worrying about him. I'm needing reassurance to make sure he's safe. I'm consistently checking the weather. Is that going to prevent him from not getting into an accident on the road? No, it's not. So we really have to be mindful of that when we're worrying is, can we really prevent or predict a disaster from happening? The thing is that we really can't. So working on, worrying smart and, really challenging some of our worries. And that also, we use a lot of CBT practices, which, is scientifically proven to work. And we do run a lot of programs that, do use these as well. There's fear exposure that, really helps people become tolerant to uncertainty. Okay. And there's lots of different practices, and that can look like a fear ladder. Usually people will start with the smallest fear and then start working towards, the harder ones. And an example of that is, let's say I'm really intolerant of going to a restaurant without knowing what's on the menu. And normally, my normal behavior would be to go and search what's on the menu before going to the restaurant. Well, in a practice, so a fear exposure to that would be going to a restaurant and not researching the menu on the internet and seeing what that's like. And I do want to note is that when we do start to, practice, facing some of our fears to uncertain outcomes, that there will be a peak, there will be a spike in anxiety, because we have to remember that we've been thinking, feeling, and doing and behaving a certain way for so long. Okay? And even though it may be debilitating and it may be damaging, to your life and the way that you're, running it, and this, we can't deny the fact that it's comfortable and that it's known. And that's the thing, is that we can know that a behavior or, or ways of thinking, really aren't serving a purpose for us. But because we're so used to it, and because humans are just, we are beings who love patterns and information and predictability and security, we crave these things, okay? So it's very natural for us to have a little bit of resistance when we are trying to change, when we are trying to change and challenge our thinking and our behavior. So it's very normal. And what you'll end up seeing is, over time, with more practice for longer periods of exposure, that you are able to actually get through the uncertainty, and you actually end up building in your self confidence and self esteem. If you want to even think of it this way, think about back in the day when you were riding a bike. If you fell, I'm sure you fell off. I think most of us have fallen off a bike, unless you're super good bike rider out there. Is that, what, most of us fell off, and even though we were scared to get back on, we still faced our fear. And by facing our fear over and over and over again, what we did is we showed our fear that, hey, I can do this. I actually can. And you know what? You're not controlling me anymore. And actually, in fact, I'm the one in control. And then what happens is that you do have, a sense of mastery, and, that builds in your confidence and your self-esteem going forward. And that's just a little example of that. Okay, so those are some of the things that we can do around challenging, some of those worries and be more tolerant to uncertainty. And, like I mentioned, we do use a lot of CBT practices. And that's, really challenging the way that we're thinking, because a lot of the times we're using a lot of catastrophic thinking, all or nothing thinking, also referred to as black and white thinking, only paying attention to certain types of evidence, fortune telling, storytelling, thinking that we can predict the future, all those sorts of things, when in reality, as much as, it'd be kind of cool to, we really can't. And so those are some of the things that we can do in regards to our thinking. So what are some other things that we can do to bring calmness to our bodies? Is we can practice meditation practices. We can practice being mindful. We can, excuse me, use a lot of apps, or even there's YouTube videos out there, there's yoga practices. All those sorts of things bring calmness to our bodies, okay? And there's actually great free apps. So there's Headspace, there's Calm, there is Mindshift, and there's Life Coach. There's also really great website resources out there as well. And there's adam.mb.ca. So that's our website for the Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba. There's anxietycanada.com. There is adaa.org, and that's the American Anxiety Association website. And sorry, excuse me. And like I mentioned, like there's so many great meditation practices or mindfulness practices on YouTube as well, besides those apps. So those are some really, really great things to start just bringing calmness and mindfulness into our lives. We live in a very fast-paced world where we're consistently valuing, the product over the process. Like, that message, oh, you need that to be happy, or look at this new thing, or look at this. We're not, or even like our to-do list. If you want to think of our to-do list and we're checking everything off and it feels good, it's like, are we rushing through each task to get to the other one, to get to the other one, to get to the other one, just so that we can have that sense of accomplishment, or are we able to, be in our process and be mindful? Because when we're able to be in our process and we're being able to be mindful while we're doing it, we're really like aware of everything around us. We're aware of what it feels like maybe to even wash the dishes. What does that soap and water feel like on our hands? We're paying attention. Am I getting all this dirt off this dish? Is my mind clear? Am I focused on what I'm doing in this moment? Because, as much as sometimes we'd like to think that we can multitask, it's really not a thing. We cannot multitask. If you think you can multitask, you're just really good at doing a bunch of little things, like not to the best of your ability. Just kind of doing it half. You're doing half the amount of effort that you would if you were to be doing it mindfully. And that's why sometimes we forget if we lock the door, or if we shut off the element off the stove. I mean, that's happened to me, and I can be very honest. I was not being very mindful at all. So that's actually a perfect example of that. Another thing that we can do is making sure that we are looking after our bodies, okay? And what that looks like is, are we moving our bodies? That is huge. Activity is huge. It doesn't have to be, going to the gym, lifting weights, sweating. It doesn't have to be that. It's just about moving our bodies. That really helps release a lot of those fight and freeze response hormones that get released when that part of our nervous system is activated. So it does help, get rid of that adrenaline a little bit, and that built up cortisol that is in our bodies. Okay, so that's where activity is really helpful. And another helpful thing is to be mindful of, what we're putting in our bodies. And so a lot of people don't know, but, caffeine can contribute to anxiety. So if you're drinking, a full pot of coffee and you're wondering why, maybe your body's just wired, or you're feeling anxious, well, that can definitely be a contributing factor. Alcohol, how much are you drinking? That is another contributing factor. Drugs, even, if we're overusing marijuana, or other drugs that people are using, that can also contribute to anxiety. Sugar, any sugary foods, we wanna make sure that we're limiting how much we are intaking, throughout our day. and really limiting the amount of processed trans fat foods that we do put into our bodies, because again, that can also have a contributing factor in increasing our anxiety. Yeah. And so that's just kind of a brief overview of what a generalized anxiety disorder is, what we can do. Yeah, and and if you need to talk to your doctor, you know, I would encourage you to talk to your doctor if you think that you have anxiety disorder. And yeah, that can be a first step. And just to know that you're not alone, that you know what, usually it's like 1 in 5. I think it's actually even now 1 in 3 people do struggle with an anxiety disorder nowadays. So it is very, very common. And just know that you're not alone. And before I do go, I do want to, and again, like I will send out some handouts with this presentation as well. But I just want you guys to all be aware that we do offer programming through the Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba. And so what we offer is we offer a anxiety worry support program, and that's offered to individuals as well as groups. And what this is it consists of 6 sessions that kind of just goes over what anxiety is, what worry is, how we can build up tolerance to uncertainty. We start challenging our thinking using a little bit of CBT. We focus on a lot of arousal reduction, mindfulness, and meditation practices, as well as we do some SMART goals, as well as what kind of movement and activities we can create in our lives, so that we are getting the most going forward. So that's a really great program that we've gotten just a ton of wonderful feedback from. We also offer a coaching for confidence program, and this program is offered to principals, to school teachers, to caregivers, to parents, anybody who has a student or a child or a youth who is struggling with anxiety. And what this program does is it, just provides really, really great information on how you can be a really great support to our children and to our youth, and how you can lead by example. So that's a really wonderful program. It is new to Adam, and we just started running it this past fall in 2021. So we're getting really, really great feedback. So I think it's going to be quite a popular one. We also offer ongoing support groups, as well as one-on-one individual support. So that can be if you're just struggling, maybe you're struggling that day and I just need to talk to somebody. We are here for you. We have been through anxiety as well. Okay. And what has happened is, we've learned how to manage our anxiety so that we are now in the driver's seat. And anxiety is taking the passenger side right next to me. And it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this presentation. And I will have a handout with all of this information. So there's going to be some breathing techniques in there, some things that you can do to bring about calmness to your body. And yeah, and there's going to be some phone numbers, websites, apps, all that information that I did discuss with you throughout this presentation will be in there as well. So once again, thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all well. Thank you.